If you have warm season and cool season grasses already growing on your farm, or if you have cool season grasses and you're thinking about planting warm season grasses, you're going to wind up in a situation where both of them are available at the same time. What do you do during that period? Which one do you graze? Answer, really very simple. Graze the warm season grasses as soon as they are ready. If you don't, you're going to ruin the warm season grasses. And secondly, the warm season grasses at that time of year are a whole lot better quality than the comparable cool season grasses. Let me show you what I mean. This chart is from some work that we did here in Tennessee, and what you can see is during that 2-month period, where at least in Tennessee you might have some chance of having both cool and warm season grasses available to you, look at the rate of gain that we are getting on these warm season grasses. Nearly 3 pounds a day in May, 2.5 down to 2 pounds in June, depending on which species you're talking about. That's considerably better than what we would expect from cool season grasses at that same time of year. I want to show you how important that early spring gain can be in your forage management. This is a study that was conducted in North Carolina a few years ago, and they had 3 different forages that they evaluated, one of which was a tall fescue plus Bermuda grass system. Now what they did in this system is in early April they started grazing endophyte-free tall fescue, and in early May they switched over to Bermuda grass, which was grazed for the balance of the season until early September. So what you see in this light colored bar is the full season gain, April through September. What you see in the dark bar is the gain that occurred after June 1. So what we see is then in the beginning of the season we gained 133 pounds. That's over a 56-day period, about 28 days roughly on each of these 2 forages, total of 56, 133 pounds. Let's compare that to what the natives did, which had a higher rate of gain. You can see the switchgrass and big blue stem had tremendous total gain, but let's pick on the big blue stem for a second, a little more conservative example. And what we see there is during that early grazing window prior to June 1, we picked up 355 pounds, 222 pounds more than we got over here. And by the way, that big blue stem was not grazed until April 23rd. In other words, there was no fescue on the front end of it, so we had 18 fewer grazing days and 222 pounds more of gain. So folks, that early period and these high rates of gains that natives can deliver are a big advantage over staying on your cool season grasses. One other reason to get off of our cool season grasses in the spring relates to when we're grazing toxic tall fescue, which is most of the tall fescue that's out there. The toxin that's in that toxic tall fescue, ergovaline, peaks in about mid-spring, mid-May, corresponding when the seed heads are coming up on that tall fescue. And so that's a great reason to get these animals off that grass and onto something like the natives that are non-toxic. So you might ask, well, okay, that's great. I'll get off my cool season grass, but it's still growing well. It's still producing. So what do I do with it? Well, there's a real simple answer, is just take that cool season grass, harvest it as hay, because once you've cut it as hay, those ergovalines are not stable and will begin to diminish, and about 75–80% of it will go out of that hay, and so you'll have a better quality hay to feed.